Hey everyone, it's Catherine with Free Tours by Foot. Today we're going to go on a little walk around Rockefeller Center. So let's go ahead and get started. So we are starting here. We're at 49th Street and 6th Avenue. So the car is going by this way, that's 6th Avenue. So the first thing I'm going to show you is actually right across the street, these tall buildings. There's a few of them. This maybe is not what you had in mind when you thought about Rockefeller Center. These are technically a part of Rock Center, though. These were an extension of Rockefeller Center that was built in the 1960s. So if you're sitting here thinking that, you know, these are a little boxy, a little boring, there would be a lot of people that would agree with you on that one. Most people think Rock Center and they think like beautiful art deco buildings, probably something a little bit more like this. So the other side of 6th Avenue, totally different story. So we started with the plainer looking buildings, and we'll get to the more interesting looking stuff from here. So I'm walking north right now on 6th Avenue, and you can see right here a sign for the Tonight Show, NBC Studios. You'll be seeing the NBC name a lot though as we walk around. We'll talk a little bit more about it a bit later on. So straight ahead, you can start to see Radio City Music Hall. So this was actually the first building of Rockefeller Center that was opened up in the 1930s. When it was opened, it was one of the largest venues of its kind in the world. It's actually still, I believe, the largest venue in the United States, seats almost 6,000 people. So people think of Radio City today and they definitely think the Christmas Spectacular and the Rockettes. That's definitely true. But Radio City, when it first opened up, showed all kinds of things. It was concerts, and so symphonies performed there. They showed movies, they showed newsreels. That's actually kind of how the Christmas Spectacular got started. The Radio City Rockettes were an act. They would come out and like perform before the movie started, or if they were showing a double feature, they would perform in between the movies. So they were showing something that happened to be a Christmas story, and so they decided to be in theme and do something festive. So they came out and did their toy soldier dance that they still do in the Radio City Christmas Spectacular to this day, and a tradition was born. Eventually ditched the movies and made it all about the show. People still flock to see the Radio City Rockettes every single year. So these days, mostly concerts and things like that, but there are some other events that happen there. The Tony Awards typically happen at Radio City Music Hall, and also the NFL football draft. It's actually at Radio City every year as well. So you're going to see me focusing a lot on the sides of buildings, and that is because one of the fantastic things about Rockefeller Center is there is so much artwork, usually just right on the buildings themselves. And so you kind of have to be paying attention, but I'll make sure I show you as many of them as I can. So another NBC sign here, and this one says Rainbow Room, which is a restaurant up towards the top of the building, and observation deck. So take a quick look in here. We'll go up and look in the window up here. So you can see the big red carpet there. That's for Top of the Rock. So that's the observation deck. And you can go in right in these doors to go to Top of the Rock. So, I want to make sure I show you in the window here. You can see that spectacular chandelier that actually goes all the way down. Those are Swarovski crystals, and kind of in the shape, if you can really look, you can see it's kind of in the shape of 30 Rock, the building this is inside. So make sure you stop and check that out, even if you don't go up to the observation deck. But Top of the Rock is really worth checking out when you're here. A lot of people ask, I have a lot of people on tours ask me Empire State Building or Top of the Rock. I guess my answer is if you have time, both. It's a different view from both. But Top of the Rock is definitely worth doing, I think. You can get some pretty amazing views and amazing photos. So that beautiful chandelier that we just saw, the Swarovski crystal chandelier, that was put in place back when they reopened the observation deck, top of the rock, back in 2005. So definitely something to look for. So we're gonna go over this way first. Ooh, they have some nice planters here. It's starting to look like spring in Rockefeller Center. So this is a pretty big complex. People think Rock Center, and they sort of just, I think, tend to focus on 30 Rock itself, the main building, but it's a pretty big complex. I'm gonna stop here when I get a chance and I'm gonna give you a quick look around. So this is all Rock Center. It's a pretty massive complex. More Rock Center, of course 30 Rock. So just to give you an idea of this scale, I do want to come up here and see if I can get a good view. Again, more artwork on the buildings. See if I can get around this restaurant setup, even though it is very cute. It's right across the street, the Silver over there. That's a piece by Noguchi. It's called News, and if you really look, it's actually depicting reporters getting their news. You can see one on the phone, one writing down on a pad, somebody on a typewriter. So kind of the tools of the trade. So a lot about Rockefeller Center, I think, is very much a product of the times that it was built in. Obviously the art deco, the style of the center, very, very popular in New York, especially in the 1920s and 1930s. And this was built in the 1930s. So the way all of this started was John D. Rockefeller Jr. had actually been approached by the Metropolitan Opera Company, said, you know, they wanted to partner. They wanted a new opera house. They were thinking about moving uptown further. And they said, you know, hey, maybe our opera house could be like the centerpiece of a big project. And so he said he would develop this whole compound basically around their opera house. So he took out a lease on this land. All of this was actually owned by Columbia University at the time. Took out a lease, a 50-year lease, I believe. And this was the late 1920s, then the Great Depression hit. And the Metropolitan Opera Company decided it wasn't really a great time to build a new opera house. They backed out of their end of the project, and Rockefeller was left kind of holding the bag. So he went ahead anyway, which was really an enormous show of faith, I guess, in our ability to bounce back here. Another great piece over here. You can really see all of the detail, this fantastic, very art deco style artwork and the gilding. So part of the idea behind this is, in order to make this place work and in order to help New York bounce back, they were hoping to not just attract American businesses to Rockefeller Center, but a lot of international business as well. And so a lot of parts of Rockefeller Center were built with that in mind, having kind of this international flair. And so this is depicting things from all over the world, just to try to, you know, stay in keeping with that idea of this was going to be a place for international business, not just New York, not just the United States. So honestly, it was a really big deal when Rockefeller decided, with the onset of the Great Depression, that he was going to build anyway. You know, during this same time, a lot of other planned building projects in New York City were being dramatically scaled down, or they were being canceled altogether. So the fact that he went ahead with this was, I think, the largest private building project that had ever been undertaken in modern times. And so the fact that he went ahead with this anyway was pretty fantastic, and definitely a really big show of faith in the fact that things would come back. And importantly, also employed thousands of people during the Great Depression. Building something of this scale took a lot, and not just people to do the actual construction, clearly a lot of artists as well, as you can see by the amount of artwork. So I'm on Fifth Avenue right now. So Rockefeller Center really stretches all the way from Fifth Avenue to Sixth Avenue. So we are here at the International Building. This is probably one of the most famous sculptures here in Rockefeller Center. So this is done by Lee Lowry, which actually you can find his work all over Rockefeller Center. This is definitely the most famous thing though. Any fan of the TV show 30 Rock definitely recognizes this from the opening credits. So for anybody who's a mythology buff out there, you might recognize this as Atlas. According to mythology, Atlas was punished by the gods and he was made to carry the weight of the world on his shoulders forever. So that's what's here. It is really an amazing piece though. You get this ancient myth, but done in this very, very modern style, and it's something that just blends so perfectly with the Art Deco buildings. So this building over here, you can actually see it says the International Building, which of course I said they did really want that international character of Rockefeller Center, but it wasn't supposed to be just the International Building. It was actually supposed to be a lot more specific than that. So it was 630 Fifth Avenue. So right along Fifth Avenue, the plan was they were going to build 4 lower rise buildings here on Fifth Avenue, and they would actually offer space to foreign governments so that they could have embassies here. And this one was meant to be the Deutsche House, or German building. But this was the 1930s. Tensions were rising and they decided they did not want to offer space to the Nazi government. And so this became the International Building instead of the German building. But actually, they were so committed to that plan that actually a good amount of this building was made with steel manufactured in Germany. So 630 Fifth Ave, I am going to walk us inside just a minute because there's some beautiful artwork in here as well. The lobbies of some of these buildings are so spectacular. So here's the International Building. Pretty beautiful. So actually on both sides here, this is an art installation that was added in the 1970s. It's pretty beautiful though. So that was a little bit later, certainly not a part of the original design of the building. That was though, right up the escalator. I don't know if you can see. Well, you know what? I think I can go up there. Can I go up? No, okay. No, it's okay. Never mind, not allowed up today. But right up there, the guy at the top of the escalator is Charles Lindbergh. So that's a bust of him right up there. Sometimes you're allowed up, but not always, like today. So Charles Lindbergh was the first person to fly solo across the Atlantic, flew from Long Island to Paris, and on a plane called the Spirit of St. Louis. And so, you know, when Rock Center was built, that was pretty shortly after this happened. It was considered such an amazing feat, just like a testament to what humans could do. And that was so in the spirit of Rockefeller Center that he was included there. So I love this view of Atlas right here, directly across from the entrance to St. Patrick's Cathedral, the seat of the Catholic Archdiocese of New York. There are a lot of people that think that placement is really not an accident, that it was very purposely placed to have this kind of stark contrast of this figure from ancient mythology done in this really modern, at the time, style, just right across the street from the front doors of the seat of the Catholic Church in New York, and this very, very different style of building here. So we're going to go back up Fifth Avenue from the International Building. So even though the German building did not end up working out, this idea of having embassies here did work out in a couple of cases. This one right on the corner, once I'm able to cross the street. This one is the British Empire Building. And this was actually utilized as the British Empire Building. was also a home of MI5. Ian Fleming, the creator of James Bond, actually worked in this building. And there's an early Bond story where he's stationed here at Rockefeller Center. So right above the door, more fabulous artwork. Everything's so shiny at Rockefeller Center. So these are supposed to depict some different industries and different industries important to the British Empire. And the sun over the door was also meant to symbolize the idea that in the days of the British Empire, which spread all over the world, that the sun never set on the British Empire. That's why there is a sun, and then there's a coat of arms above the door. So the other building that worked out in that way, here's the sign for the British Empire building here. And then directly across the way is the Maison Francaise, which was also used by the French government. And so this original idea for these buildings did work out in some cases, just not in the case of the German building, though it did become the international building. So you see the Maison Francaise here. I'm gonna go check out the artwork over the door. If you're walking around Rockefeller Center, definitely always check the entryways, because that's where you tend to find a lot of these fantastic pieces. Ooh, that's so shiny. So right above here, lots of gold. And you can see all the way up there, Liberté, Égalité, Fraternity, the woman with the torch. And if you look in the gold, those two women at the top of this, holding hands, that's meant to be Paris and New York holding hands across the Atlantic. That kind of sweeping thing in the middle is meant to be the Atlantic. You can actually see Notre Dame there on Paris's lap. And then that's New York over there. You can see a little bit of the skyline. So right in between these two buildings, we have this little stretch here, just a garden, some water, some fountains, some pretty flowers, very nice flowers. Got some tulips and some daffodils, and let you see into the fountain there. Depending on the time of year, when you come here and walk around for yourself, this may look a little different. Depending on time of year and holidays, sometimes they take some of this out, put some installations in. But this is called the Channel Gardens. The reason it's called the Channel Gardens is because we are between British Empire building and the French building. And in between those two countries, in real life, we have the English Channel. So, Channel Gardens. So, you can also see some of the shops here. A lot of this is office buildings, but the ground floors, there's quite a bit of retail. There's a Tiffany & Company here, chocolate shops and clothing shops. Oh, we got the tulips out. It's spring. I always tell when it's spring in New York, there's tulips everywhere. So, very beautiful seeing it this time of year. And we're coming up to one of the other really famous sites of Rockefeller Center, and that's Prometheus across the way. And then also here, you have this plaque. Not gonna read all of it because it's quite long, but this is something from John D. Rockefeller actually, so just kind of outlining some of his beliefs, some of the things that led to him building something like this. Says, I believe in the supreme worth of the individual and his rights to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And then some other very nice sentiments there. And so right across the way, straight across, is Prometheus. I'm going to go around so I can get a better view maybe. So we'll walk around. So what's going on right here is a changeover. It's just the time of year. We're in a short little window where this is a little bit torn up. So what's happening is typically down there is the ice skating rink. So starting in the late fall and then going all the way through the end of March, that's an ice skating rink. But then they take it out and there's a changeover that happens, and that will be an outdoor cafe pretty soon. So that's what's happening there. We'll go get a better look at Prometheus from a different angle. I might have to go around to the other side. But for now, we'll take a quick look over here at some more of Rockefeller Center. Over here is the Today Show. So you can see NBC News written up there. NBC obviously has a really big presence here in Rockefeller Center. The Today Show is a really popular thing for visitors coming to New York City, though. So they film, I'll walk over and show you. Whoop, now I can go. Okay. They film here, and because of all the windows, it's almost like a fishbowl, so you can see in, and so you have people that gather out here in the morning and they watch filming inside, and then this open space here. If you've ever watched the Today Show and seen an outdoor concert or some kind of gathering outside where the actual hosts of the show are outdoors as well, that's where they are, is over there. So we're gonna walk around so we can get a better look at Prometheus. Unfortunately, because they do have everything changing over right now, it's just a little harder to get some views. But we will come back so we can finish up at 30 Rock right here. We'll come back and we'll definitely go inside as well. But 30 Rock has to be the grand finale. That's definitely the most recognizable of the buildings here. So one of the other things you may notice when you come here, and is definitely a little different right now, is all of the flags. So these are definitely different right now, and this is a special installation. So this is the Flag Project 2021, 83 artists. So it says Spring 2020, we invited photographers of all abilities to participate in the Flag Project and share images inspired by city spaces, objects, textures. So that's actually what all of this is right now, is all of these different photographers' work printed on flags. So something a little different right now. So what this normally is, kind of as a nod to the international character of Rockefeller Center, is typically all of these flagpoles are filled with flags that are all the flags of the member nations of the United Nations. On US holidays, sometimes it will either be all US flags or it will be all 50 state flags of the United States. Obviously, we have way more flagpoles than we do states, so they just repeat all of the state flags over and over again until they fill up. Okay, so now I think this is the best we are going to get of Prometheus here. But I wanted to make sure you got to see it because it is one of the most recognizable statues in New York, definitely in Rockefeller Center, and it has kind of the place of honor there in front of 30 Rock. So Prometheus was said to be a favorite myth of John D. Rockefeller Jr., the man who was building Rockefeller Center. So Prometheus, according to mythology, was a titan. He was a titan and he stole fire from the gods at Mount Olympus so he could give it to man, so that mankind could progress as a society, and he was banished. So what the statue is depicting there is Prometheus with the fire in his hand, leaving the heavens. If you look really closely, sorry I can't get any closer, there's actually astrological signs around him on that ring, and that's supposed to be him descending from the heavens. And it's kind of an interesting depiction. This is not the reason for the sculpture behind him, but the sculpture behind him over the front door of 30 Rock is actually Zeus. So from this angle, it kind of looks like Zeus is banishing him from Mount Olympus for stealing fire. So we will start making our way over towards 30 Rock. I'm going to stop on the stairs up here, so I think I can give you a really good look up and down at 30 Rock. I really like these flags. Definitely different than what's normally there, but I think it's a very cool project. All right, very sunny today. There's a look at 30 Rock. So, originally the idea was, this whole thing was going to be centered on the Opera House. But then the Metropolitan Opera backed out, and instead, for a performance venue, we got Radio City Music Hall, which you can see straight ahead. And Rockefeller Center became a big hub for radio and later television. So this building here was originally built as the RCA building, the Radio Corporation of America. So that's where the nickname Radio City comes from, as there is major broadcasting for the radio happening here at 30 Rock. 30 Rock is not nearly as tall as it looks. I always have people on tours ask me when they see it, is this one of the tallest buildings in New York? No, not by a long shot actually. It's just taller than everything else around it. So it kind of tricks your eye a little bit. And it also has this tiered shape, this idea of setbacks, this tiered shape of the building. I think it also makes it look taller. But 30 Rock today is the home of NBC Studios, so if you are a fan of SNL or late night, any of that, this is where that happens. So you can see the gold lettering outside here. It says Comcast building now. That's the current owner of the building, but it was originally the RCA building. So I want to give you a better look at Zeus here. There he is. So this is called Wisdom, and it says, "Wisdom and knowledge shall be the stability of thy times." So the idea behind this work here is, and this was a big idea that John D. Rockefeller, I think, wanted to convey, was that radio and television could actually be used to spread knowledge, to spread wisdom. I know that's not always what we think of when we think about TV today, but that was, that was the thought behind it, was this can actually be used as a force for good. All right, let's go in. I'll give you a look around. Hopefully I won't get kicked out. So you have some big murals here. Right there, across the way. That's American Progress. And so what you have in this mural is you actually see Abraham Lincoln, Gandhi's in there. It's showing basically some of the great figures of the past and then us moving forward through industry and progress. And then you have this up on the ceiling. No surface uncovered here. It's crazy. If you're actually standing under this, you may not be able to see it from here, but it actually sometimes looks like it's moving up on the ceiling. Strange little trick of the eye. So this may seem like kind of bold visions or designs for the 1930s, and they are. The Spanish artist, Jose Maria Sert, and it was, but not as bold as what was going to be there. They had actually originally hired Diego Rivera, a very famous artist, to do the murals inside, and he did. But if you know anything about Diego Rivera, he had some pretty outspoken political opinions, and those definitely found their way into his mural there at Rockefeller Center. It had some pretty strong anti-capitalist themes going on. And the Rockefeller Foundation was willing to keep it there. They just asked him, would he paint over some of the more controversial parts? And he said, absolutely not. He said he would rather it be destroyed than alter his ideas. And that is what happened. So instead we have American Progress there. So actually right here, the ground floor, it's FAO Schwartz. And FAO Schwarz used to be a little further uptown. It's kind of right by the southeast corner of Central Park, and then it closed, but they fortunately reopened here because FAO Schwarz was a really well-loved tradition in New York City. So it's nice that it's still here. And so this is the other side now of 30 Rock. We'll come up here to finish up, but right across the street opposite this side of 30 Rock, this is Christie's, the famous auction house. So if you're here in New York City and you're an art lover, definitely worth a stop. Just a quick little jump across the street and you could head over and check out what's going on at Christie's. And straight up here, got the sign for the Rainbow Room and the observation deck again. It's a giant teddy bear at FAO Schwarz. So there's a look at Christie's there. Okay. Hope you enjoyed our little walk around Rockefeller Center. Definitely, if you have not already, subscribe to our channel and ring that bell so you get notifications every time we release new content. We'll have more walks coming out. There are lots of places we can see together, and you can do it right from wherever you happen to be sitting right now. And it's not just New York. We have these walks going on in cities all over the world. We have them in New Orleans. We have them in London. So check out what we have going on in some of these other places as well. And we'll see you again soon. Bye.